What's up guys, it's Chris. Today we're doing my personal killer tier list and we'll be ranking them mostly on their base kits and how they play against Swifts, but we'll also go over add-ons and how strong their current meta builds are. Let's jump right into it. Let's get it started. So as you guys can see, we have a separate tier up top for our girl, the nurse. Yeah, game breaking. Limits the perks and stuff developers can put in the game just because of how insane she is. Second strongest killer in the game, who we have right here, is Blight. And honestly, as strong as he is, Nurse can use Starstruck and Devour in her power. It makes no sense to me. I have no idea why it's allowed. She can go through walls and ignores literally everything on the entire map. Blight has to at least respect walls, but he can't use Starstruck. I don't understand. I don't get it. So yeah, Nurse is busted. Blight still top of S tier, just off of ridiculous add-ons, honestly. I think if Artist had even close to the add-on power that he gets out of his, she would probably be contending with Nurse, honestly, just if there was that many game-changing add-ons for her. But speaking of Artist, she is next in S tier. Our favorite girl, the Artist. We love her. She's insane. I mean, denies loops like Nurse, has better map pressure than Nurse. It does take a little bit longer to get your downs and stuff like that, and you know, having severed hands is pretty big for having as much value out of her power as possible. But this killer, when you're really rolling and you get that first hook before a gen pops, 99% of the time the game's over. 99%. If you get a hook before the first gen pops as the Artist, you can feel pretty good you're gonna win, and that's all there is to it. And that's ridiculous. Next up, we got Spirit. JD was telling me that she actually got like a nerf to Mother-Daughter Ring, where Mother-Daughter Ring was actually making her move faster than she was supposed to. I don't know about all that. Either way, she has really great add-ons as well. Doesn't have as good a map pressure as the other three, which is why she's going to be at the bottom of S tier here. Because using your power to get to places, I mean, it's decent mobility, but then when you get to places, you're a 110 killer without a chase power for a while. So it does hurt her a bit, but a ridiculous amount of strong builds you can run on her. She can really destroy a team, and it's really hard to play against her in chase, so yeah, she's definitely still up in S tier. Okay, next up, starting off A tier, we have the Spirit's grandpa, Oni. He is nasty. The only thing that can stop him from really steamrolling the game is getting delayed on his first hit a lot. But there's a lot of builds you can use to help yourself out with that, using stuff like Corrupt or Lethal, finding people in bad spots at the start of the game. The killer is phenomenal. Honestly, out of all the powers in the game, like, seriously, imagine Oni didn't have to build up his power, and he had that mobility and lethality on pallet destruction, just base, like a hillbilly chainsaw or something. I mean, he's fucking insane, right? But yeah, unfortunately, there is that little drawback. A lot of really good builds right now, though, to help him out, especially with all the survivors boon abusing. You can just bring Sloppy, takes him longer to heal the boons, and you get a lot of blood orbs that way. The killer's still really, really, really good. And next up, we have Plague. Again, kind of playing around the healing meta right now with just how insane boons are and medkits still being as strong as they've ever been. She pretty much negates all that stuff. And honestly, that's really, really powerful right now. I'm not even going to get into Corrupt Purge yet, but that's really, really powerful right now because there's so many survivors that rely on permanently being healed with those medkits and circle of healing they always bring. It's just like, when those survivors don't have that to fall back on, they don't know how to play the fucking game. When they can't permanently be healthy, they're lost. So, and then that brings us to these survivors also cleansing a lot, not understanding. Even some people do understand you shouldn't cleanse against Plague, but they still do it just because they don't know how to play injured. And her Corrupt Purge is also one of the most disgusting powers in the game. It is insane for chase, getting multi-hits. Proxying hooks can be disgusting. This killer is, and always has been, really, really strong, especially in the right hands, but yeah. Plague's definitely up there. Next up, we're going to throw Pyramidhead in A tier. He's still really good. Yeah, you can deny a lot of loops with Pyramidhead. A lot of survivors will avoid the torment trails and opt to even just take a hit instead of getting hit by those trails and getting tormented, which is great for you. It's free health states. And then if they are taking those tormented hits, it's just free 2 hooks back to back if you want to play that way. I try to avoid that most of the time because people hate it, but if I'm really looking to win and I get somebody tormented, they're just getting 2 free hook states without being able to do anything about it, which is pretty crazy. He doesn't have one main strong build that I use a lot on him. Pain Res DMS, you know, stuff like Deadlock can be really nice. But yeah, ever since the new perk changes, Pyramidhead hasn't had one really strong build, in my opinion. Deadlock and stuff like that is really good. But yeah, ever since Ruin Undying Retribution, it hasn't been his staple because Ruin's just a dead perk. Speaking of, we can get into this another time. I have no idea why Behavior lets Circle of Healing be so gigabusted, but they took a high risk, high reward hex like Ruin, which could be gone 10 seconds into the game, and made it fucking useless. Like, it's literally better to kick a gen and get the 2.5% minus. It makes no sense. Anyway, ever since those builds got changed, Pyramidhead not having one build that he just really dominates with does hurt him a lot. But, I mean, this killer is still nasty. His power is crazy. Getting people tormented is just a death sentence. Can't go wrong. And next, a bit of a hot take, some people might not agree with, is Pinhead. So, there are so many different things you can do with this killer. So many kinds of builds. The box by itself, the pressure that it brings to a team is ridiculous. Adding stuff like Deadlock or easy regression perks like Call of Brine so that while they just can't touch gens, it can really just make games a nightmare for survivors. Finding that box early, if you're one of those pinheads who can play off lethal and find the box early on, people are going to be just dying. Franklin's Hoarder still making it really easy for him too. Yeah, this killer can be horrible to play against. I know a lot of people that hate playing against Pinhead. I think he's cool, but yeah, that box is really dirty, and he has a nice chase power too. Next up, now that we've had a little bit more of a chance to experiment with this killer and with the Knight's new perks, which I think are awesome, Dredge is also going to be an A tier for me. A killer with this kind of mobility, he has a solid chase power. If you can get survivors cornered, they just die. After learning a little bit more how to use this chase power a little bit better, it's actually pretty solid. Nightfall, this killer is terrifying in Nightfall. He also gets that no terror radius. You can play off perks like that, like the new Hex from the Night. Really good stuff. I think this killer's crazy, and I want to see some Dredge mains out there. I want to see something like that. Next up in A tier, I would say we have Huntress, who can be absolutely nasty at playing around a 3-gen, having somebody hooked into it. She can chain downs together really quick, just chew through hell states. If somebody's in a bad spot of the map, they're just going to go down in 5 seconds flat, no problem. Super cool killer, really good. There is an insane skill cap too, so putting some time into learning this killer. If you've seen somebody like Coconut RTS on YouTube, absolutely insane some of the stuff you can do with her. And on top of that, really good at camping, really good at slugging. She just has so many things that can make her ridiculous and turn a game in her favor that it's hard to go wrong with Huntress. Another one in A tier, we have the Hag. Now, this is kind of up in the air for a lot of people, I think, too now. I mean, the Hag's power can be gross, and she has some add-ons, Rusty Shackles and stuff like that, that can make her feel a lot better. But really, if you're against a solid team, and they have one person just kind of following behind you, ruining your traps, it can be really hard to get anything done. Moving as a 110 killer with no power in a situation like that can feel really bad. But if you take your time and you start out with Corrupt and you can get a web going at some point, you can kind of turn a game. All you need is one hook with this killer, really, to get something nasty going on, which is insane that all she needs is one hook to be in her web and she can just end the game off of that. But there is a lot of counterplay. A lot of people, strong teams, are finding really easy ways to play around that. So it can feel really bad. I'm not saying you can't. Still, in your average, solo queue game, this killer can really destroy people pretty quick. For the last one, in A tier, we have Wesker. And I really think this killer's pretty awesome. He has some solid mobility, good chase power, pretty crazy slowdown once you're getting people infected pretty frequently. That permanent infection Wesker build we ran in a video, which I'll link in the description, pretty insane. I mean, you could put survivors in such a bad spot, and they're forced to cleanse your power, or they're moving 8% slower and they get insta-downed, which is ridiculous. And you can be pressuring somebody at the same time as while they're doing nothing for half the game. So this killer is awesome, really, really fun. I think he's pretty balanced as far as playing against him in chase. Like, he has clear strengths, clear weaknesses, and just really, really fun. I think they did a great job with Wesker. That's going to be the last one for A tier, though. And starting us in B tier, bit of a hot take to some people. We have Deathslinger. So here's the thing with Slinger. He completely counters all the endurance perks, all of them. With Save the Best for Last, no matter what you do, you cannot W key this killer. Using Dissolution, survivors cannot pre-throw pallets, especially if you injured somebody nearby. They are just going down. Like, with all these new changes and Dissolution being in the game, even a map like the Meat Plant, this killer can dominate on, which is ridiculous because the old counterplay to Deathslinger was pre-dropping pallets. You can't even do that now with some of the stuff he can have going for him. Even with the faster break speeds by themselves without running Dissolution, maybe just Brutal, pretty crazy. You can't run away from a loop if he has you pinned. You just can't. So I think this killer is ridiculous. Not great map pressure, but that's where perks like Jolt, Pain Res come into play, where you can just keep hitting the gens without really having to go to the gens themselves. Pretty dirty stuff. Yeah, I think this killer is severely underrated and really fun. And I hope I see some more people playing him because I think he's really cool. And he's definitely stronger than he's been in a while. Next up, we're going to put Demo. Now, Demo's chase power is really underrated, and I know he's not available for a lot of the newer players and stuff like that, which is a little bit sad. I'm still going to rank him because you do see him sometimes, and I have him play him sometimes. He's really fun. Fantastic mobility. If you're putting portals on gens to watch them as well, you can see the killer instinct when people are near the portals. So it's free info. If they're cleansing the portals, that's free slowdown while you're doing other stuff. He is the best Save the Best for Last user in the entire game, and the perk is great right now on anybody that can get value out of it. This killer is super, super good, super fun. Just all around pretty simple, but there's some little tricks and stuff you can do with him to make him even stronger on certain loops, getting hits people might not expect on. Yeah, I love this killer too, and hopefully he'll be coming back at some point so everybody can get him, but yeah, Demo's definitely in B tier, top of B tier. Next, though, we have Bubba. So, the best face camper in the entire game, as a lot of people know. Yeah. He can shred pallets, get downs very quickly. If you have somebody in basement, somebody goes for the save. Everybody knows how that goes. It doesn't go well. Really, really solid add-ons with stuff like Eerie Flesh, the Chilies. Even some of his engraving add-ons are pretty good. Yeah, this Bubba can be pretty dirty, and if he can find one weak link in a team where a survivor's down to just be throwing pallets immediately and doesn't really know how to play around Bubba too well, the map's going to be bare in a minute or two, and then the game's just over. He's just going to kill everybody with really no way to play around it. Yeah, especially running Bamboozle or something like that. So Bubba's pretty good. He doesn't have that mobility, and he does need to be getting the resources out of the way, or, he kind of can't use his power too much. But very, very good. Obviously the best camper in the game, like I said, so he's still in B tier. So next up, we have Nemesis, who's right here. If you haven't noticed, these killers all have something in common right here. They can destroy pallets, and in a state of the game where, old Dead Hard isn't in it, just buying people free chases that they don't deserve. Having killers like this who can just get rid of those pre-dropping pallets all the time, pretty awesome. And Nemesis can play around a lot of loops really well too, especially if you get tier 3 and you've played Nemesis a little bit. He is really, really hard to play against and chase sometimes. If his zombies worked perfectly every game too, I mean, I'd probably end up putting him somewhere like here. They just don't. Half the time, sometimes even more than half the time, they're just stuck in a wall or something, and you go kill them and they get stuck in another wall. It's just a mess. But his normal power, you know, the whip is fantastic. He can be really, really good. A lot of good builds on him too. Yeah. The only thing that Nemesis could get a little more love out of is some different add-ons that could be a little bit more helpful. But other than that, I think he's really solid. So next up, we have Legion. A killer I haven't been seeing too much recently. Again, they got some really great add-ons in their latest changes, which are pretty nutty. The only reason I don't put them higher is because, obviously, after you have everybody injured, they don't really have anything to down people unless you're getting that 5th hit with those like never sleep pills and stuff like that. It does happen more often than you think too, but it's just not quite enough because experienced survivors can just run a killer that has no power for quite a while, especially on a lot of these new maps you've been seeing. Garden of Joy, Eyrie of Crows, even the new map, can't remember the name, but seeing like 40 pallets on that map disgusts me. If I got that on Legion, I'd probably just leave the game. But having people injured all the time is pretty huge. Using a gen kicking build like Call of Brine Eruption Overcharge can be really good with this killer, and even Brutal Strength on top of that. You don't need info perks on Legion because of how his power works, showing you everybody nearby, which is awesome. Being able to completely ignore info perks and just run slowdown or something to help you in chase. Definitely nothing to laugh at. Yeah, he has an easier time getting anybody injured than any other killer in the entire game, which is not a weak power. Like I was just saying with that Eruption build, having everybody injured means it's going to be easier to get your Eruption procs when you need them. Eventually you'll get the pallets out of the way, you know, the Forever Legion. People talk about Forever Legion, the Nanophobia, stuff like that. But the killer's pretty good. He's pretty fun. They have the best cosmetics in the game. You know, you gotta admit that. So, not bad. I think people are gonna get mad at me for this one. So I'm gonna put Twins in B tier as well. Here's the thing. On paper, Twins are a solid A tier killer that has a really good chase power and hard to do anything about. But they have two huge weaknesses. The amount of time it takes switching between the two, Charlotte and Victor, is pretty significant. On top of that, if survivors are pairing up in groups of 2, which normally you wouldn't want to do against the majority of other killers, she can't do anything with Victor because the other survivor will be able to kick Victor after he downs one survivor and heal that person up by the time Charlotte can probably get there. That's if they're just running in a straight line away from them. On top of that, if you're using Victor to injure people, survivors can just hold Victor hostage. You're an M1 killer with no power, but you do take somebody out of the game because they're just holding Victor. They can't do gens or anything. It's not a weak thing. Obviously, being able to call back Victor whenever you want would be a lot better for this killer. So that's my only problem. In the right situations, and there's a lot of strong builds that can make this killer really strong, they can take over a game and kill everybody just through a slugfest in a matter of seconds, you know, probably a minute tops. But there is so much counterplay if survivors are playing well and know what they're doing against this killer, especially with all the boons and medkits and stuff. It's gonna be really, really hard to do what you want to do with this killer. So for that reason, unfortunately right now, I think Twins is low B tier. Hopefully the changes coming soon will give them a little bit more strength and make them a little bit more fun. I'd like to see them be a little bit more fun than they are now. It can feel really bad sometimes. So that's it for Twins. Next up, we have Doctor. Now, again, Doctor has so much going for him. Great info. Second best user of DMS in the entire game. almost an infinite amount of good builds you can run on him with tier radius based stuff, gen kicking stuff. Doesn't really need info because the add-ons he gets. Not that anybody's gonna fucking read those things because they're 2 pages long. But the one thing holding this killer back, which is a big thing for killer, is a strong chase power. It's not bad, and once the doctor knows what they're doing, any situation where they can get it down, they will. But again, kind of like what's been going on recently with the new maps, like I just mentioned, Eyrie of Crows, Garden of Joy. It's really, really easy for survivors to just pre-throw pallets and hold W. And that's not cool. It's not fun to play against. It's not fun to have really nothing to help yourself out with in chase. It can feel really bad sometimes, but that's not saying the doctor doesn't have a lot going for him. He really does. But you need people downed and killed in Dead by Daylight, and sometimes he just can't do that. And for the last killer in B tier, we're going to put Ghostface. So he has amazing stealth. The add-ons that behavior gave him are awesome. Big changes. Being able to sneak up on people and get insta-downs on any killer, that's a great thing. He's pretty quiet too. Info perks are phenomenal for this killer. Just being able to sneak up on people and come from unpredictable angles. But again, no real chase power. I've seen some ghost faces, be able to use the crouch and chase and hiding the red light really easily and stuff. Not that you can't just moonwalk on other killers, but there are little things you can do sometimes to mind game some survivors. But realistically, no chase power at all. Which again, talk about the maps, can be really hard to deal with sometimes. If you can get that good start with something like Lethal though, you're in business with this killer, and he's really fun, really cool. There's a lot of different ways you can play him in different games. So I do like Ghostface. Again, not having a strong chase power is going to hurt you as a killer, no matter what else you can do outside of that. So, to start us off in C tier, the killer I hate the most in Dead by Daylight is Trickster. Now, here is my problem with Trickster, and honestly, I would not be mad if behavior just removed this killer straight up out the gate. He can down the most experienced survivors in the game in a matter of seconds just based off of a map. This killer, if it's a brand new player playing Trickster, they can hold down left click and look at a survivor with 7,000 hours and down them in 5 seconds if they got a good map for it. Like, this killer has so many problems to me. So first off, no map pressure at all. He moves at 110. He's not going to be covering any gens. So a lot of Tricksters will do something similar to Huntress, where they'll play really territorial or, camping around like a gen area. And the thing is, at least to me, Huntress takes some skill and practice to be able to know what you're doing. She does have good add-ons, but there is a lot of a learning curve, and there's ways to play around it. Now, a Trickster, especially with main event, he is going to down everybody with very little thought at all. He's just looking at somebody and they go down. It's literally, you have a fucking Uzi that you don't even need to click. It's just, bzzz, you know what I mean? With main event. I hate this killer. I'm not saying he's the best killer in the game at all. Going down on this killer feels really bad to me. And I would like to see some kind of change. I don't know what they could do. I don't know. They kind of, whatever. He's out there, fine. You just hold left click on gens. Hopefully you get a strong map and run the killer a little bit. I hate him. I hate Trickster, but C tier because he can down people really fast. Hillbilly. So, poor Billy. Honestly, Billy really needs some love. He does. Behavior hates this killer, and I don't know. I think they're just scared of what survivors say, because before, Hillbilly was cool. He was awesome. He had some really fun add-ons and stuff before they gutted him. In 2022, this killer just does not need an overheat mechanic. If you look at a killer like fucking Blight or Artist or Spirit or Nurse, Oni, he does not need an overheat mechanic. And I think behavior is just scared to give this killer some more love because survivors are going to cry about it. You know, chainsaw killer so OP, like people say about Bubba. Fine, but yeah, killer's really fun. Great mobility still. Obviously a big thing that hurts him a lot, which is going to be a common theme with these C-tier killers, is certain maps. Stuff like Larry's. Good luck. I would just leave the game. Yeah, he's awesome. Needs some add-on love. He does not need an overheat in 2022. Billy's cool though. Hey, respect to any Billy mains out there, for sure. So, next up, we have Clown. I thought about putting him higher, because he has one of the most disgusting add-ons in the entire game, which is Pinky Finger. If you guys have ever played against Pinky Finger Clown, it is not fun. You could pretty much queue up a game of Clown with Pinky Finger only, no perks, and 4K pretty consistently. It's disgusting. But as much as I am including add-ons, I want to think about the killer's base kit a little bit more here. Outside of Pinky Finger. Look, if we want to include Pinky Finger, he's probably top of B, bottom of A. If you're just doing Pinky Finger Clown only. But I'm not. He has great builds right now. His chase power is very strong. I think this killer's really slept on just because people look at him and he's just so simple for the most part. Like, you could just chuck purple bottles for the most part and do really, really well with stuff like Say the Best for Last, Dissolution, Jolt, Pain Res. A build like that is nasty. But, again, doesn't have that much map pressure. Those perks really help him with that a lot. He has some great builds right now. Yeah, I think a lot of people dismiss Clown a little bit, though, because his power is so simple on the surface that you would think it's not that good. This killer's hard to loop, dude. He's strong. He's hard to loop. So, he's definitely at least in C tier right now, for sure. Next, we're going to do Onryo. So, this killer has had a lot of different opinions on her throughout the community since she got released. She has great mobility. She honestly has some really solid add-ons, especially for people playing around the Condemn playstyle. Very good, as you've seen from people like One Pump Willie. You can really, really get some wins off survivors who aren't super top tier. But for the average Onryo, without a real chase power, obviously there's just not that much there. You can use stuff like the newspaper add-on, give you a little bit more of that invisibility, playing around certain palettes and stuff. Can mind game a lot of people. She does have one really good build outside of Condemned only, with some like Make Your Choice, Floods of Rage. That can be really great if you're hooking people near TVs and stuff. Really, really hard for survivors to do anything about that at all, because you're also building up Condemned on those people at the same time, you have to remember. So, not D tier. A lot of people were thinking she was D tier. Definitely not. Definitely not top tier, though. Just doesn't have the chase power, really. And that can hurt her a lot. Killer's a lot better than I thought originally, though, for sure. Next up, after Onryo, we're going to be noticing a bit of a theme here. We have the Wraith. So, he has some really good add-ons. The Knight's new perks are sick on Wraith as well, by the way. You could use all those perks on Wraith and have a great time, I think. But, yeah, again, he's kind of facing a similar thing to Onryo, where he has great stealth. He can get that hit and run and stuff. Pretty great add-ons. You can have some really fun builds with him. His chase power is just not that good. So you have to really rely on getting pallets out of the way, sneaking up on people, and just having them not have resources nearby so you can get those easy downs and stuff. But Gen Kicking build, his add-ons are really solid, honestly. I wish they would rebuff All-Seeing Blood, but, you know, you take what you can get, right? If he had a little bit more of a chase power, Killer would probably be bumped up quite a bit. I get why they don't want him to be super strong, though, because he's pretty simple, straightforward. Pretty easy for beginners to pick up, too. He is fun, though. I like Wraith. He's cool. Next up, we have Pig in C tier as well. So, just some great builds right now. The one thing that really hurts this killer is that before she gets a trap on somebody, she really has no power. And depending on the map, if you're getting something like Cowshed, Meat Plant, Garden of Joy. It can be really hard to get that first down before 3 gens pop, especially against a coordinated team. Her ambush, it's really not a power. There's very occasionally you can get a hit and stuff like that. Most of the time it's going to do nothing. You can't even use it most of the time. But if you get a trap on somebody early on and you get that pressure rolling, that is one person who's completely out of the game and could potentially die if they're not respecting the trap, especially with some of our add-ons like the gears. When you're getting traps on people, the killer is very strong. Taking somebody completely out of the game like that for who knows how long is very strong. If somebody's taking off their trap first try, that puts a lot of pressure on the rest of the team as well, because it'll take them at least 3 searches. It's not bad. Also being able to kill people if they try to leave in endgame after the last gen pops, really good, because you're pretty much just confirming 1 kill no matter what. It's not a bad killer. She could really use some love with a chase power, but besides that, she's not bad. She has some good builds. Save the best for last. Brutal strength, a little bit of that being in the base kit really did help her too. Helps her get pallets out of the way. Not bad. She's not that bad. She's not D tier anymore. Definitely not. Next up, for our last killer in C tier, we're going to put Myers. The only problem is the other killers here can do some of the stuff he does just way better, way easier. And if, you know, teams are calling out exactly where Myers is, especially if they're on comms, like, you're going to be denied your power for a long time at the start of the game. A long time. So you're going to be a 105% movement speed killer. Now, getting into tier 2, then you're just a normal killer without a power. Not bad. You vault a little bit faster, right? But once you get to that tier 3, Myers is also one of the nastiest campers in the game. He has some of the nastiest add-ons in the entire game with Infinite Tombstone, Purple Tombstone, Hair Bow, stuff like that. The fast stock add-ons, really, really nice. So in your average game, this killer is not going to be bad at all. He has some really good builds. He can snowball hard as fuck, especially if you're getting some pallets out of the way early on. He can be really, really deadly. And if survivors are fucking up, you can confirm a kill so easily by just popping your tier 3 next to a hook. They can't fucking do anything, or they just lose off slugging. He has a lot of really good strategies. Especially having, like, just think about it. It's like a killer with a base kit no-ed whenever he wants to pop it, right? But, like, just think about it that way. It's a really simple way of putting it, but yeah, it's not bad at all. It's not. Sadly, I'm so sad to do this because I was really excited for this killer. I would say for the killer at the top of D tier, I'm putting the Knight. So here is the problem. He has so many problems to me. Chase power, extremely weak. The amount of times you're going to get like a double hit, so where like the guard hits somebody and you hit it right after, slim to none, unless the survivor really fucks up, honestly. His guards can help pressure people off of gens, right? That's what people want to say. Pig can do that too, and it actually has a threat to kill somebody. Artist can do that too, and she actually has a threat of injuring somebody with it. Pinhead can pressure everybody on the map at once and be killing somebody with the chase power of that pressure at the same time. So, using the guards and chase, you can deny people from a loop, right? That's what people want to say too. You can deny people from a loop. So, what do? They run to a different loop. And then you're a killer with absolutely no power. You have to wait for that guard to stop patrolling that area until you can use your power again, which, depending on which guard you put out, if you put out the fucking jailer, good luck waiting 2 minutes for your power to come back, buddy. It doesn't feel good. He does have some nice add-ons that can feel pretty fun to use. I really do like that purple jailer add-on where you get 10% movement speed after summoning him. That can feel really good in chase. I don't know if it's just me. I have not found one strategy that makes this killer feel like he's really powerful. Not one. I would love to be proven wrong on that if anybody has any ideas on stuff to make him strong. I have tried everything against a decent group of survivors. It feels really bad. I still can win, you know, games. It feels terrible. It feels awful. I do not like the AI. It can be really buggy as well. But again, I probably should have seen this coming. A killer based solely off of AI in Dead by Daylight. It was bound to not be super good. He looks awesome though. Design's super cool. I like the idea. He just fucking sucks. He sucks. And then we got Trapper, who is, you know, he's Trapper. He has some okay add-ons. You can play around basement and killer or survivors can't do anything about it. But if survivors are paying attention to where you had your traps, if they have just one person going around popping them, you have no power. You're an M1 killer who has nothing going for him besides, you know, a really cool mask. And that's about it. Again, if you do have the basement, especially in like Shack or something like that, survivors can't do anything about it. If they try to get altruistic, you just win the game. But it's such a, getting a good game with Trapper is really fun. That's why I feel bad doing this. It can be really fun, but there is a lot of downsides to this killer. No killer has the setup kind of time of Trapper with the low upside of maybe your traps don't get found and maybe you can force survivors into that area and maybe they don't just walk 2 feet to the left of that grass pile you put your trap in. It's, yeah. He is fun though. He can be pretty fun. Okay, for the final killer, you can see him. We got the Fredster. Ever since Ruin Undying, Pop Tinkerer got all reworked, that was his go-to build. It made him really strong because he could just pressure the gens completely for free with teleporting directly onto the gens. That was really strong for him. Now, it's a little harder because his chase power is not that good. People can W key the loops. You know, still have that lullaby even when they're in the nightmare, which tells everybody you're nearby. They can just be paying attention. He has no game changer add-ons outside of that one eerie paintbrush, which not bad. Nightmare, give Freddy some love, man. That's about it. But yeah, that is going to do it for this one, guys. If you guys have any disagreements or if you want to let me know your opinions down in the comments below, I'd love to hear them. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and I will catch you guys in the next one.